When the movie actor James Dean died in 1955, it was his car that killed him. The car was a Porsche 550 Spider, and it has been the center of so many mysterious events that many believe the car to be cursed. Enjoying the riches from being a famous movie star, whilst filming Rebel Without a Cause, Dean had upgraded his existing 356 Spider to the more powerful 550 Spider. He wanted to customize the 550 to put his unique stamp on it, and enlisted the help of the movie car expert George Barris. The car had the number 130 painted on its doors, engine cover, and hood. It was finished off with tartan seats and 2 red stripes around the rear wheels. Dean's stunt driving coach, Bill Hickman, suggested that the car should be called Little Bastard, and this name was painted on the car. The actor Alec Guinness, famous for playing Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, met Dean outside a restaurant on September 23, 1955. Dean asked him to check out his Spider. Guinness told Dean that the car had a sinister appearance and said, "If you get in that car, you will be found dead in it by this time next week." Dean would be killed in a head-on collision driving his beloved Little Bastard exactly 7 days later. The name Little Bastard turned out to be very appropriate, because various people who came into contact with it after Dean's fatal accident were also killed or badly maimed. George Barris, who customized the car originally, purchased the wrecked remains of Little Bastard for $2,500. Shortly after purchasing the car, it slid off its trailer and broke the leg of a mechanic. Barris sold the engine to Burbank Dr. William Eschrod, and parts of the chassis were sold to Beverly Hills Dr. Troy McHenry. While the two were both racing against one another in cars that had parts from the Little Bastard, McHenry lost control and hit a tree, killing him instantly. Eschrod was seriously injured when his car suddenly locked up and rolled over while going into a turn. There were 2 tires which were undamaged in the accident, which Barris also sold. Both exploded at the same instant, causing the new owner's car to veer off the road. Barris kept the remains of the car in his garage, and 2 would-be thieves noticed this. One had his arm torn open trying to steal the steering wheel, and the other was injured whilst attempting to remove the blood-stained tartan seat. Due to all the incidents involving Little Bastard, Barris decided to hide the car, but was persuaded against doing this by the California Highway Patrol. They wanted to use the mangled remains of the car in a highway safety exhibit as an example of what can happen if you drive at excessive speeds. The first exhibit wasn't a great success as the garage which housed the car caught fire and burned to the ground. Yet, the car mysteriously had virtually no damage as a result of the fire. The next exhibition was at a Sacramento high school, though it had an abrupt ending when the car fell off its display and broke the hip of a student who was standing next to it. Little Bastard caused several problems when being transported between exhibition sites. On the way to Salinas, the truck carrying the car lost control, which caused the driver to fall out, only to be crushed by the car after it fell off the back. The car fell off of 2 more transport trucks while traveling on the freeway and in Oregon, though fortunately not injuring anyone. Another vehicle's windshield was shattered in the Oregon incident. The Californian Highway Police finally decided that they'd had enough of the Little Bastard, and while transporting the car back to Barris, the car mysteriously disappeared and has not been seen since. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb was made by a team of archaeologists led by Howard Carter on the 26th of November in 1922. The Egyptian boy king had lain in rest for the previous 3,000 years. The financial backer of the expedition was Lord Carnarvon, who rushed to Egypt with his daughter to see the discovery. Many believe that this intrusion unleashed a powerful curse of death and destruction upon all who dared disturb the pharaoh's eternal slumber. The tomb was hidden in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, and unlike many other tombs, had not been ransacked by thieves throughout history. The world marveled at this astounding archaeological discovery and the treasures which were found in the tomb. It was reported that many visitors to the tomb entered with great trepidation because of a message inscribed into the burial chamber which said, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." Soon this prophetic message would become true, and the legend of the curse of Tutankhamun was born. Lord Carnarvon died a mere 6 weeks after the opening of the tomb. It is said that he accidentally tore open a mosquito bite while shaving, and ended up dying of blood poisoning. It is also said that at the exact moment of his death all the lights in Cairo went out. Even more mysteriously, Carnarvon's dog, which was back in England at the time, howled loudly before dropping down dead. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the famous writer of the stories of Sherlock Holmes, suggested in newspaper reports that Carnarvon's death was caused by mysterious forces guarding Tutankhamun's body. By 1929, 11 people closely involved in the discovery of the tomb had died prematurely, of unnatural causes. These included 2 of Carnarvon's relatives along with Howard Carter's personal secretary Richard Bethel, who was found dead in his bed in London. Bethel's death drove his father Lord Westbury to commit suicide by jumping off an apartment building. Also included were the following curious deaths. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, a radiologist, merely X-rayed the mummified body before it was given to museum authorities. He got sick the next day and was dead 3 days later. Hugh Evelyn White, a British archaeologist, saw death gradually sweep over about 24 of his fellow excavators. In 1924, Evelyn White hung himself after creepily writing in his own blood, "I have succumbed to a curse, which forces me to disappear." James Henry Breasted was working with Carter when the tomb was opened. He allegedly returned home to find that his pet canary had been eaten by a cobra, and the cobra was still inside the cage. Given that the cobra is a symbol of the Egyptian monarchy, and a motif that kings wore on their headdresses to represent protection, this was a creepy coincidence. Although Breasted didn't die until sometime later, his death did occur immediately after a trip to Egypt. Aaron Ember, who was an Egyptologist known to Carnarvon, died in 1926 in a house fire. Although he had plenty of time to escape, he darted back into the flames to retrieve the manuscript of a book he was working on, which was spookily called The Egyptian Book of the Dead. On the morning when Carter first opened the tomb, a hawk was spotted flying above the excavation site. His Egyptian workmen thought that this was a bad omen. Perhaps this was the boy king looking over those who were daring to enter his place of eternal rest? The small town of Thirsk in northern England has a tiny museum which contains an interesting exhibit. There is an old chair which is mysteriously suspended halfway up a wall. The chair is hanging on the wall to prevent anyone from sitting on it. The curse of the Busby Stoop chair will lead anyone sitting on it to an untimely death, so it remains suspended to protect the general public. Also called the dead man's chair, this item of furniture has a strange and haunting past. The tale starts in the 17th century when a notorious criminal, Daniel Oddie, moved to a small farmhouse in the countryside close to Thirsk, with his daughter Elizabeth. Elizabeth later married the local innkeeper Thomas Busby. Oddie and Busby set up a secret coin counterfeiting business in a cellar beneath Oddie's barn. Busby was a big drinker and was regularly arguing with Oddie. One day he returned home to discover Oddie sitting in his favorite chair threatening to take Elizabeth back home with him. He was infuriated and threw Oddie out of the inn. Late one night in the year 1702, Busby went to the cellar in Oddie's barn and ended up strangling Oddie after arguing about his share of the profits. Busby dragged the body out of the cellar and hid it in some bushes nearby. He was soon arrested at the inn and sentenced to be hanged. Whilst being dragged away by the authorities, Busby cursed the chair, saying that anyone who sat in it would be haunted and soon die. Busby's body was dipped in tar and left for public view on the stoop of the gibbet from which he was hanged. After Busby's execution, the inn was renamed Busby's Stoop Inn. Accounts of the curse being fulfilled didn't start until much later, which is in itself a mystery. In 1894, a chimney sweep sat on the chair and was later found hanged. It was some time later when the curse really started to kick in. The cursed chair has reportedly killed everyone who sat on it. During the Second World War, Canadian airmen from a nearby base were regulars at the inn, and they noticed that the chair became a hot seat because those who sat on it would never return from flying missions. In the late 1960s, 2 Royal Air Force pilots sat on the chair, and whilst driving back they crashed into a tree and died. Throughout the 1970s there were a spate of premature deaths associated with people sitting in the chair. A bricklayer sat in the chair after being goaded to do so by his workmate. The same afternoon he fell to his death from a height whilst working. A roofer sat on the chair and died later when the roof he was working on collapsed. A cleaning woman stumbled whilst mopping and ended up sitting in the chair. She died soon after from a malignant brain tumor. There were a number of cyclists and motorcyclists who were the victims of fatal road accidents, and a local man died of a heart attack shortly after sitting in the cursed chair. The innkeeper, concerned by all these coincidental deaths, moved the chair into the cellar, hoping that no one would sit on it. However, one day a delivery man was in the cellar and sat on the chair. An hour later he crashed his truck and died. That was the last straw for the innkeeper, and to finally get rid of the chair, he donated it to the Thirsk Museum in 1978. A beautiful carved silver vase, weighing around 4 pounds, was made in the 15th century. It became to be known as the Basano Vase. It was thought to be given as a good fortune gift to a young Italian woman the night before her wedding. However, she was never to see her wedding day because she was found dead and clutching the vase close to her chest the next morning. A short time later, the vase was given to another family member who also met with a premature death shortly after receiving it. The next person in the family to receive the vase was also to meet an untimely end, and the family eventually realized that whoever touched it, then death was sure to follow soon after. The family asked a priest to hide away the cursed object so that no other people could come to harm. The Basano vase remained hidden for hundreds of years until it mysteriously resurfaced in 1988. A young man was digging in his garden in Italy and lifted out the vase with a clod of earth. The vase had been buried with a note saying, "Beware, this vase brings death." Realizing that this ancient artifact must be valuable, the man discarded the note, as it would put off potential buyers, and listed the vase for auction as soon as possible. A pharmacist paid the equivalent of about $2,540. The pharmacist owned the vase for a mere 3 months before his untimely death. His family sold the vase to a doctor, and a few months later, he was also found dead, at the age of just 37. The vase was sold on again, this time to an archaeologist who was building up a collection of unusual and mysterious artifacts. Yet again, only 3 months later the collector died of a mysterious infection. The stories continued with one final sale of the vase. There are no other details about the final owner, though he died in less than a month after taking possession of the vase. By this time the vase had become notoriously lethal, and it was impossible to sell. A family member of the last deceased owner was said to have thrown it out of a window to get rid of the evil thing and break the curse. The vase narrowly missed hitting a police officer, and he fined the person throwing it at him for littering. They were happy to pay the fine, though refused to take the cursed object back. The police tried to get a museum to accept the vase, though given that it was now common knowledge that it was cursed, none would accept it. Several Italian newspapers reported that the local police had buried the evil object in an undisclosed location, with some sources even suggesting that it was buried in a small lead coffin in the grounds of an ancient cemetery, in an attempt to lock away the curse once and for all. A horror classic called The Exorcist was released in 1973. The movie was based on a true story of the exorcism of a young boy who was possessed by demons, which prompted many people to believe that the movie was cursed. In the movie, the character was changed to a girl at the request of the family of the boy who was exorcised in real life. The movie follows the story of 12-year-old Regan McNeil as she becomes possessed by evil entities. The movie proved to be so distressing to audiences that many viewers fainted and threw up at the horrific scenes. One woman who watched the movie was so frightened that she passed out and broke her jaw when she fell. She said that subliminal messages caused the accident and attempted to sue the makers of the movie. One night in Rome, a storm surged as the movie was being shown. A massive bolt of lightning struck the nearby church steeple, and a giant 400-year-old cross crashed onto the plaza below. At the same time, many people watching the movie claimed to hear a demonic wailing coming from outside. However, the strangest events occurred whilst the movie was being made. A set was made of the interior of the McNeil family's home with separate rooms, including Regan's bedroom. During filming, this set caught fire which destroyed much of the building. apart from Reagan's room, which was curiously untouched by the destruction. Director William Friedkin said that a winged creature with talons had found its way into one of the circuit boxes, causing an electrical short which triggered the raging fire. This strange creature was later reported to be a pigeon, though it's still quite creepy how it managed to get into a circuit box. Reagan's mother was played by Ellen Burstyn, and she insisted that her line, "I believe in the devil," was taken out of the film. Unfortunately, that gave her no protection from the curse. During a scene where the possessed Reagan throws her to the ground, she suffered a permanent spinal injury due to a faulty harness. Her screams from the agonizing pain was so blood-curdling in that scene that it was used in the final cut of the film. Linda Blair, who played Reagan, also suffered a back injury when some rigging broke whilst filming one of the possession scenes. Many deaths of cast members or others connected with the movie occurred whilst it was being made. Jack McGowan and Vasiliki Maliaros both died after filming was complete. It is curious that their characters also died in the movie. Linda Blair and Max von Sydow lost members of their family during the shoot. The young son of Jason Miller, who plays Father Damien Karras, was nearly killed in a motorcycle accident. A night watchman on set and a special effects expert also died during filming. The voice actress who spoke as Reagan's demonic other self experienced a real-life horror of her own sometime later. In 1987, her son killed his wife and children before turning the gun on himself. Paul Bateson was an X-ray technician at NYU Medical Center where a scene was filmed. He also played the same role as an extra. In 1979, Bateson was found guilty of the murder of a film critic. He later admitted killing at least 6 other men and disposing of their bodies in plastic bags which were found washed up on the Hudson River. Before the fire occurred, the film crew reported seeing objects move about on their own. One persistent offender was a telephone used to communicate on the set, which rose and fell from the receiver multiple times. After the fire, director William Friedkin asked Reverend Thomas Birmingham to come on set and perform a real-life exorcism, though it appears to have had little power against the curse of the exorcist.